Hello everyone, and welcome to another Starcraft 2 replay. This one's going to take place on Lost Temple. I'm the Red Terran spawning in the 12 o'clock position. And in the 9 o'clock position we have Shindy KZ, the Blue Zerg. Wow, I'm such a traitor to my own country. KZ, I'm Canadian, not Z. Although Z works a lot better with the alphabet song because Z doesn't actually rhyme. Anyways. So I'm doing this video because I've decided, you know what, I gotta actually work on my TvZ, I don't know how to end that sentence. I just gotta work on my TvZ basically, in that all I have is one kind of trick build. Yeah, the Ravens is super powerful, but it's kind of, not cheesy, but it's just kind of like a trick play, and like if I'm in like a best of 7 series, it's something I can only pull out of my hat once, so I kind of got to learn how to play standard TvZ as well. So what I've decided to do is, anytime I have close positions versus Zerg opponents, I'm going to attempt like a bio-tank siege push on his natural, and do it like a 2-base timing. So that's the way I'm going to ease into doing standard TvZ. I'm still going to do my fast expand instead of some sort of 2 racks pressure, but instead I'm just going to go bio-tank instead of Raven, and see if I can do the push. So early scout on my base, my scout gets into his base. I do see the gas, so I assume a pool will be coming up. Not sure what that means with gas before pool. It probably means a speedling build, I would assume. Yeah, I think most roach builds you go pool before gas. So I just kind of hang out here and do some blocking of an hatchery. And notice he doesn't even have the minerals for that hatchery. That is something Zergs typically do. They come out here early, just so they can whack away at this SCV, so when they have the 300 minerals, your SCV will have to flee away, and will have the low hit points. Same time, I was getting harassed here, and I pulled out a couple SCVs. And now they're bringing some drones back, and this is actually something that caught me off guard, the 2 drone harass. Obviously, I got to pull a couple SCVs at least to deal with this. And this SCV here is going to it will be easily sniped if I don't do something. So just in not facing this, I reacted very poorly. I'm going to pull this guy off trading, just attack for a bit and then flee. And then I pull out 2 SCVs, and notice, hey, these 2 SCVs I'm pulling back are both injured, so they're not going to be able to beat this guy either. So then I pull a bunch more. So now I got 6 SCVs off the line, just to 7 actually total, just to deal with 2 drones, which is really bad. And then I did mineral walk this SCV a little bit too late, and he got picked off. So my command center got delayed for a little bit, and I had 6 SCVs off the line, so putting a bunch of them back, and leaving 2 SCVs in case he comes back. This I don't actually mind having 2 SCVs not mine, just because it's so key to get this command center as soon as possible, especially versus kind of this a Zerg who's not doing a fast expand, and a Zerg who's in close position. So you have to worry about these Zerglings coming off and picking off this SCV before it completes. So notice these SCVs are not on patrol. I actually queued up a ton of attack moves back and forth, and that's because when SCVs are on patrol, they don't attack enemy units when they arrive. I wanted them to immediately attack these 2 drones if they came back, and that's exactly what happened. And that's why I did the mass attack move. If you leave them idle, they won't attack. If you have them on patrol, they won't attack. So, mass attack move is the only way I can think of doing it. And then the combination of losing this SCV and just getting enough distraction where I stop my SCV production for a little bit. I'm only at 16 of 19, where normally I'd be at 18 of 19 throwing these down. So I'm actually 2 SCVs behind, and it's going to cost me huge. In fact, I'm going to lose this SCV as well eventually. Right now I'm just running these Zerglings away from my command center, because I don't want that command center getting picked off. Also, I want as little damage done to it as possible, just because you have to pay for that repair. Repair is not free. It's not super expensive, but early game money is kind of important. So here he is in my base, whacking away at my wall. He's not going to get in, but again, I'm having to repair with 2 SCVs, and when having a low SCV count to begin with, I'm kind of broke here. I mean, I'm ready to put up my orbital, but I don't have minerals for it. I don't even have enough minerals to constantly produce from both these command centers. And I think I got 6 on gas. Yeah, I think I started by deciding to do the Raven build, and then I changed my mind later on. So we got some SCVs. At the same time, I kind of want to repair this. You don't have to, but you gotta note that it's a little more susceptible to getting like Baneling busted or something like that, or just roach sniped. Yeah, I guess I could have waited a little while before repairing it and used all my SCVs for economy at this moment, because I am kind of broke. So transferring out my SCVs now. Can't even afford to set up this supply depot here to make it a tougher wrap. And obviously this supply depot is here for the purpose of the Baneling bust. You don't want them to be able to just kind of scoot up the ramp this direction. You want them to have to go into the fortress range for as long as possible so you can get as many shots off as possible from the fortress. And do note that it looks like you can get in here, but you can't. Something you may want to play with is sealing off bottoms of ramps to get a feel for how much you actually have to cover, because it's not as wide as the top of a typical ramp. So I'm actually able to position this 1 hex further north than you would think, and that helps just make this wrap even tougher. Same time, having trouble even keeping up SCV production from two factories, let alone getting down my second and third barracks in my factory, which I really want to do. So since it is close position, I'm going to be doing that bio tank push. The way I like to do it is I get 3 barracks, 1 factory, and 1 naked starport. So the factory has a tech lab for siege tanks. Starport I keep it naked just to get a couple medevacs. I don't really need mass medevacs. I don't have the resources for it either. And then for my 3 factories, I kind of base it on what my opponent's up to. If he's heavy in roach, I'll go heavy marauder. Otherwise, it's going to be just a few marauders with a ton of marines. Because marauders don't do much versus Banelings or Zerglings. They make good meat shields versus the Banelings, and the concussive shells help slow them down. But as for damage output, they don't do much versus those units. And obviously, they do nothing versus Muta. So you want to be really marine heavy versus the typical Zergling, Baneling, Muta force. So I think I went factory before my other barracks just because I had all that gas pooled up from when I was thinking of going Ravens. But I've switched out that idea. I think, yeah, I put these refineries back to just 2 harvesters, and I'm not even going to build these refineries, so hopefully my resources will balance out a little bit better over time. I should probably get the +1 upgrade. Just try to spend up that gas, get the stim upgrade. I could probably do the siege tank upgrade immediately, even though typically I don't suggest that. It's probably better to get siege upgrade when you move out. You don't need it that early. Here comes the Zerglings just getting around. Oh, I actually did if you haven't seen this video, do a YouTube search for Destiny, Starcraft, and Overlord. This is what he calls a retard magnet, where he brings in Overlord and tries to force you to bring your army down the ramp. Of course, my army was only 1 Marine, so it's not a big deal. Here comes a wrap attempt, and yeah, he's not going to make it up the ramp. Unfortunately, I did have my door open, so 2 Zerglings made it in. Yeah, these Zerglings are going to do nothing. So 1 Marauder will take out these 2 Zerglings to pop, especially with some SCV help. And at the same time, just kind of get some repair going here just so he doesn't break his way in. Replacing this would be a good idea right now, which I think I went to do, but didn't get there in time. Because that way the Zerglings wouldn't have been able to flee. So since the Baneling bust is pretty all in, had he gone back to an economic build, he would be behind. So a lot of times the best way to respond to a failed Baneling bust is just to keep trying it and trying it and trying it until you either win or lose. And I have lost to second or even third Baneling bust attempts, which is really embarrassing. I mean, if you stuff it twice and then he tries it a 3rd time and gets it on you, I mean that's pretty rough. You feel bad when you lose that way, so you want to keep out the Baneling defense. So good amount of Banelings here, but again I got this wall up. It's not going to stay alive for long just because it's so weak. It's only in production. So he lands 3 Banelings on this supply depot, but that's not enough. We got down to 30 hit points, but I just kept it alive. That would have at least brought it back to even had he flooded in with all those Zerglings. I think I would have easily survived it, but I probably would have had to lose a lot of SCVs in the process. So once again, going for a third Baneling bust attempt. And I'm getting up my wrap wall once again. I used to do 2 supply depots, but I find that's kind of bad in that the Banelings will pop both of them. You don't want the Banelings to be cost effective. You don't want to, like, just a few Banelings actually killing 2 structures. I'd rather have them waste a whole ton of them just to kill the 1 structure. Another option is to throw maybe an engineering bay or a barracks down here. It's a much tougher building and a much tougher wrap. But I'm not too worried about the Baneling bust. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. And we're going to have a lot of Banelings here in a moment. Let's see what we have. There we got 24, 29 Banelings. What do they do to structures? 80 damage to structures. So you could actually try ramming this into my fortress, because that's 2,400 damage worth of Banelings. And the fortress only has 1,500 hit points. The armor of the fortress has no effect versus Banelings. Banelings still do the full 80 damage. So I guess it would just be a matter of how many Banelings I pop getting in. However, he's not going to go for my fortress. He's going to try for the ramp bust once again. So it's kind of scooting away from this cliff edge and then coming in around. I'm going to watch that again because it's kind of an AI fail there. I'm going to pop almost all of them. Once again, not able to kill the supply depot. And even if he had, he didn't have enough circles to follow up. At this point, I had a stronger army than he did. Once the Banelings are dead anyways. So he actually had to get Banelings inside my base as well, because the Speedlings wasn't enough. So I do want to rewind and watch that one more time, because I want to point out a little problem with I guess the AI. Well, not really a problem, but something to be aware of. So what he's going to do to bypass this cliff edge and not get picked off is he's going to send all his units here, and then he's going to shift click them to ram into this supply depot, which makes sense. That way they'll travel up this way, and then they'll travel along this way, and that way they never get in range of this cliff edge. However, if you do that, it's not going to probably work the way you intended to. 'Cause you would think, okay, all these guys, they'll move as like a big clump to here, and then they'll stay as that same clump, and they'll keep moving as a clump until they get up here. However, they really want to get to this specific point that you clicked on. See how they all kind of want to get there, so they'll kind of fiddle around in this zone and trying to get to that point, and then they'll move out. And the reason this is a problem is they're going to kind of come out more as a line rather than a clump. See how it kind of messes with them? Like, see how this kind of clustering now? Like this guy here, instead of, he hasn't actually reached this point yet, so he's trying to get back at that point. And since they're coming in as a line instead of a clump, that allows me to get lots of hits in with my fortress. So I'm going to keep popping and popping and popping and popping and popping. I think I got like 5 shots out of my fortress. Look how many of them popped. Only 3 of them made it to the supply depot. So you probably want to manually move your Banelings along the path that you want instead of using that shift click method, just because they won't move as a gigantic glob. They'll kind of get all messed up a little bit. I haven't researched. Oh, I have researched siege mode. I just got it. I should have probably got it immediately for my first tank. Typically, I don't suggest that. It's better to spend your resources on getting more tanks and then just get siege mode for when you move out. But since I know I was up against Baneling Bust, it would have made sense to get the siege tanks earlier, because siege blasts do 35 damage from 13 range and splash damage, and 35 damage is more than enough to pop a Baneling, which is only 30 armor. Now that he sees that the siege tanks are there, he knows he has no chance to Baneling Bust me again, especially without even having speed on his Baneling, so he's forced back into a macro game, and he's obviously behind. Bring up the units lost tab. Yeah, 600 over 4,500. So like I said, you want to go 3 barracks, 1 factory with a tech lab, and 1 starport. As for the add-ons in your barracks, based on what you're up against, so not up against roach, so it should be very marine heavy. And then any extra, keep on top of your resources. If you have anything extra, throw down more facilities make sense. So if you're high on gas, maybe throw down another factory, as you can spend the gas quickly on tanks. Or maybe throw an add-on on your starport so you can spend the gas on medevacs. And if you're high on minerals, maybe throw down a couple more reactor barracks. So you see I'm really high on minerals here. Probably due to bad macro, but I do throw down 3 more barracks to help catch up. And just about ready to push out now. I got 3 tanks on the field, some more on the way. 1 medevac, which is more than enough to heal up your units between fights. My old bio ball where I get tons of medevacs, that makes the medevacs more important during a battle, as their active healing really helps. When you just get a couple medevacs, that's more about what to do between battles. You know, your bio stims up and does its thing during the battle without getting much help, and then after the battle, these medevacs bring them back to full health. Here's the push out. I'm kind of scanning ahead, making sure I'm not running into any sort of bailing trap or into a flank. And I do get a pretty good view on what my opponent's up to. I'm just going to switch to my view here. And you can see I do get view of these bailings moving off to the right here. So how do you micro this push? Basically, you want to be slow pushing with tanks, so just kind of set up waves of tanks. So you always have something sieged up and protecting. And other than that, you can basically let tanks do their own thing, let marauders do their own thing, the few marauders you do have. If he rounds the Bailings into marauders, that's obviously really good for you, because Bailings don't do well versus marauders, since marauders are not light. The concussive shell helps slow them down a little bit as well. But basically the key to your push is don't let the Bailings hit your Marines, because your Marines are what you need to take out the Zerglings, the Marines are what you need to take out the Mutalisks. They're your main damage dealer. So just keep your Marines safe from the Bailings, and that's mostly by keeping the tanks between yourself and the Bailings. So since I know there's a bunch of Bailings out here, this direction, I don't have sight of it anymore, but I saw them set up for a flank out this direction. I figure the safest place for my Marines is to keep them out in front. Yes, he may have Bailings in his main base as well, but I don't know that. What I do know is he has Bailings here. That's what I mean when you just have a couple helps heal stuff between battles. So keeping these sieged up, and then just kind of slowly pushing in with more tanks. And again, keeping my bio out in front. Keep my Marines nice and safe from the Bailings, which I assume are behind somewhere. And I even decided to send out my Marauders on a Bailing hunting party. I know they're out here somewhere, and if I can get lucky enough to have all the Bailings crash into my Marauders, it would be a huge win for me. Same time pushing in, keeping my Marines up front, which is great, which means I got Marines on the Mutalisks and away from the Bailings. So my Marauders did find the Bailings. The Bailings are forced to run in now, and they're getting popped by the tanks, pulling back the Marines, keeping them away from these the Bailings. And yeah, this whole army evaporates, and all he did was take out a couple of tanks and a few Marauders. My majority of my DPS, being my Marines, are all still alive, and that is GG. So that's how I handle the Bailing bust when I do this Fortress Fast Expand. It's all about having the fortress pop the Bailings and creating tough wraps at the ramp. If you're on a map like Zelnaga Caverns or Delta Quadrant where the fortress doesn't cover your ramp, then you gotta make sure your ramp is completely covered by tough buildings. Don't have a supply depot being the key to like letting Zerglings flood into your base. You need strong buildings that can take a good beating from Bailings being at your front line. And then, yeah, for the siege push, obviously I'm just doing it on short maps right now, so it's very easy to just do a slow siege push. I just get a few Marauders just for the sake of it, unless he's going Roach, in which case you get a lot of Marauders. And then just concentrate on microing your Marines so that a bunch of Bailings don't just like ram right into them. And tanks are great at popping Bailings, so as long as you have waves of sieged up tanks, you should be able to stay relatively safe versus any sort of Bailing push, especially off of creep. Yeah, so with that, we'll call that the end of this replay, and we'll jump into the thumbs up fact of the day.
I see live people. I see dead people.
Alright, for today's thumbs up fact of the day, we're going to take a look at a match I played about a week ago versus a Protoss opponent, Han Winner. And we're at a point in the match where it's about 6 minutes in, and I'm up against a 4 gates. I'm just scouting it now, and if you look at my home defense, I'm just getting up my second and third barracks. I guess my second barracks just completed. Throwing on Tech Lab while still pumping Marines from my first barracks to fill this bunker. But I'm a little bit slow, and at the same time, I'm going to be in trouble as he already has 4 stalkers on my front line. We got proxy pylon to warp in more, and we have even another proxy pylon coming up in range of my high ground, so if he gets a stalker up here, he'll be able to warp in units on my high ground, which can be an issue. Get inside my wall that way. So we'll just play this through. So on top of the 4 stalkers, he's going to warp in 3 more stalkers and the zealot. And here he comes for the attack. Bypassing my planetary fortress, staying as tight to the ramp as possible, moving all the way up the ramp. And with only 1 Marine in the bunker, I do have one trying to take out this key pylon, but I can't hold that off with 2 Marines. It's not even worth trying to repair, so I just GG out. And yeah, another match where I felt, just not being dead on with my build, being a little bit slow, did cost me. I was throwing out 4th barracks once I scouted the 4 warp gate, but unfortunately that was one of the later places I scouted. I scouted here first, then went cross map. However, there was another reason I lost this, and this did seem like a lot of stalkers this early, and there's a reason for it that was pointed out to me by Dorsal Fin, with a PH for Fin, from YouTube. Yes, he went to my FTP site and downloaded a bunch of my replays, and he was watching this one and let me know why I lost. And if we back up, we can see quite clearly that as this push is coming in with the proxy set up and the pretty hard counter to a 15cc, at least in his head, being the 4 warp gate, if we switch to his view, there's actually nothing lit up here. He has not scouted me. He did not see a scout come from this base, so there's no way he knew I was down here. And he was setting up a proxy rush on this location, having not known that I actually am located here. And he actually did know I was located here because he map hacks. So finally getting to the theme of today's thumbs up fact of the day is, I guess, A, map hacks still exist, which was surprising to me, and B, I'm going to show you how to catch a map hacker and how to find the evidence that is actually happening. Because not all of them will be dumb enough to rush somewhere without actually throwing a probe in that location first. So to do this, basically we just rewind back to the beginning of the game. And something that this has that Warcraft 3 and Starcraft 1 did not have is the player view camera. So you're going to switch it to Han Winner, and then make sure this button right here, player camera, is lit up and on. So now we are watching the match from his point of view and where he had his screen at all times. So here he is looking at his own base while he does some sort of weird split with his probes. And then something's going to happen. Right here, look at the mini-map. He's looking at the 6 o'clock base. There's 2 reasons this doesn't make sense. 1, there's no way he knows I spawned in the 6 o'clock, at least there shouldn't be anyway. And 2, it's just a big fog of war, so there's nothing you can see. However, if you're using map hack, he'll be able to see where I'm located and check, what race I am, what structures I'm putting up. So he's back to his base, doing his own thing. Throwing up the pylon. Back to my base. Now he's looking at my ramp. Why would he be looking at my ramp? Well, let's switch it to the everyone view. Because I threw down a structure at my ramp. And this is how you catch the map hackers. Because if you're map hacking, you can't resist glancing over at your opponent's base. I mean, that's the advantage of map hack, is to see what production structures he's putting up. So yeah, he's always going to be looking over to see what unit composition you have, when your army is moving out, what structures you're building, and that's how you catch him. If you ever suspect someone could be map hacking, load up the replay, switch it to his view, make sure the player camera is set to his view, and then see if he's just looking at your base in the fog of war, because that's the biggest giveaway. Obviously this guy wasn't trying to hide it at all, and he did a proxy rush on me without ever scouting. So yeah, I mean, a little history. There was a bunch of hacks that came out around the same time in the beta. There was the map hack. There's two other major ones. I can't remember the third one, but there's one where you could warp in immortals without having a robotics facility. And yes, I said warp in, so you could like you could bring them in at a proxy pile and just warp in immortals. And then of course there was the map hack, and then they fixed the other two bugs, and then they did a bunch of bans for the map hack, but I guess they never actually fixed that exploit. So it still exists. I guess there's just a threat of getting banned. So I did report him to Blizzard, and I included the replay. However, I don't know if they actually checked those emails or not. I added Han Winner to my friends list just to see if he ever stopped showing up online. Then I'd know that he actually got banned, but I'm not keeping my fingers crossed. I even sent him a friendly message after I found out he mapped. I wasn't like just getting pissed off at him. I sent him a message like, "Oh, this is how long have you been map hacking for? Have you ever been caught by Blizzard? Do they punish you?" and stuff like that. Just more like I'm making casual conversation, and he didn't even respond. All he did was block my communication. So I was trying to get some sort of response out of him, but yeah, that failed. So there you have it. Map hack exists, and the way to catch it: switch to your opponent's view, play your camera button, and all the evidence will become quickly apparent just through that. At the same time, this is the only evidence I've found of map hacks, so don't just like, oh, I'm not laddering, it's all map hackers, they always beat me. You know, it's 99% of the time you think someone's map hacking, they're probably not. I mean, it's kind of the same where I play online poker. I find there's, two sorts of players with online poker. There's the people who win money, and then there's the people who say online poker is rigged. Anyways, with that, we'll call it the end of this video. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.